I mean, I just want to thank you for making the accommodation for me. You guys are busy, you have busy lives, all of you do, I'm sure. And you made time so that I could, listen to your concerns and also share some of my vision and my concrete plan of action for our youth in LA. So let me tell you a little bit about my background. So I am a CSUN grad, a business grad, and I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, raised by my single mother and my grandmother. I never knew my father. In fact, if he walked through a door today, I still wouldn't recognize him because I never remember ever seeing him. So we attended church in LA, even though we lived in the Valley. We used to ride the bus all the way from the Valley to LA to go to church. I married my bride 48 years ago at a church on the corner of Manchester and Broadway. Both of us grew up in Pacoima. We were not born in Pacoima. I was born in Alabama in the segregated South. And my bride, Bessie, she was born in North Carolina. She lived in the projects in Pacoima. I lived with my grandma and my mother and my brother and my sister, and I was the oldest. So that's a little bit about that. When I was at CSUN, I became a football player, a walk-on athlete. In my fourth year, I made All-American. I was the first university All-American at Cal State Northridge. I got drafted out of college in the 5th round by the New York Football Giants. Never really made it big. I played it with them for a little bit in the Kansas City Chiefs, and then went to Canada and played there and got injured. But I had a degree. So I had a degree. I went back to the Valley. I wanted to go to work in Northridge, but sadly, back in those days, I got my real estate license. That wasn't the sad part. The sad part was I worked hard for 9 months in a row and didn't get one transaction because there was housing discrimination in the San Fernando Valley back in the late 1970s, believe it or not. And so I worked for 9 months, couldn't get a transaction, but I moved my office, moved to a different office, and I went back to work with friends of mine that I grew up with. The majority of my friends were, this is a term that may be a little bit dated, but they were called Chicanos. They were my homies. I was a lowrider. I had a 57 Chevy, used to hang out with them. And I went over to their house and ate menudo and mole and everything else. So that was my growing up time. So I started selling houses in the Pacoima area because they wouldn't let me sell anywhere else. Out of that time, I started doing home buyer seminars, first time buyers. My mission in this mayor's race is to stand up for the middle class and for the young people, because nobody's standing up. They ignore the middle class. They act like the young people are not even existing until they need something from them. And so, I remember being young years ago, a kid who was kind of like angry because I didn't have a father, and I wanted to make a difference in life. So I started volunteering after I got into real estate, and I became a Chamber of Commerce member. And when I was 30 years old, they elected me to be the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Pacoima. And everybody on the board were old enough to be my parents. And Pacoima at that time was a community that was mostly African-Americans and Latinos. And today, 90% of the Pacoima is Latinos. A lot of the African-Americans moved out. So we needed to have a shopping center. We were a food desert, no shopping center. All we had was liquor stores. And so I worked hard with the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofits, and the faith communities. And we got the mayor at that time, Mayor Tom Bradley, to help us by putting together a grant to help the builder build a shopping center, which is still there today. And we defeated redlining. So I fought redlining all my life. I fought housing discrimination, and I'm still fighting gentrification in LA. So that's kind of a little bit of a background on me. 3 different mayors appointed me to various commissions. I didn't ask for any of them to appoint me. The first one was Mayor Tom Bradley. The second one was Mayor Richard Reardon. And the third one was Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. So I've been appointed by Democrats and Republicans. And here's what they say about Mel Wilson, and then I'll wrap it up. They say, Mel Wilson, he's honest. He has integrity. He's a hard worker. He's a team player. Mel Wilson gets the job done. So with that, I thank you for letting me give you a little bit about myself. I have 3 adult young people who are trying to make it in life. It's still hard out there for kids who are coming out of college with all the student debt. And I'll tell you about some of my initiatives after you ask me whatever questions you want to ask. But I'm honored. I'm honored. And I will say this. People talk a lot, but when it comes to public policy, all that matters is what's in your budget. Your budget is your list of priorities. If they talk all this stuff and it's not reflected in their budget, it doesn't mean anything because they're not going to do it if they don't even allocate funds for it. The other thing I want to share is that if people talk about they want youth to be involved, they need to start sharing the power. They need to start getting youth at the decision-making table and not after the meal has already been set. They need to start at the beginning. So that's where I come from, and I'm fighting for the middle class, fighting for small businesses, fighting for Angelenos, young and old, but a lot of young because I'm old. But I'm learning new things from a lot of young people like you. So I'm honored to be able to share that with you this afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kenny Wilson, for that great introduction. And
please call me Mel. You make me sound even older than I am. I know I got all this gray hair.
Mel, thank you so much for being here and for giving us more background of who you are, what you've done, and why you're here today running for mayor. So I can get us started by giving a quick background about who we are, who the coalition is, how we got here, and why we're here today. So we are the Invest Youth Coalition. We are now an organization of a coalition of 70 plus organizations. We started back in 2013, and the reason was because we sparked the conversation of why is there not enough youth investment in the city of LA. Therefore, we started off with the long-term vision of having a youth development department in the city of Los Angeles. We were like, how come San Francisco has one? How come New York has one, but LA doesn't? So after 70 plus years of advocacy and work and rallies and a bunch of talks with politicians, we finally got the big win last year. We were able to create the first YDD in the city of LA. And that was all the hard work of the youth in the city pushing and advocating and never giving up. So as we played a huge role in creating the first youth development department, we wanted to make sure that the next mayor will continue supporting the youth of LA and that the youth will be on their agenda, and as well as supporting the department we just created. So thank you so much for being with us here today. I will transition into the questions, but before I do that, I just want to say we want to follow the same rules we had at the mayoral forum. So sure. At the mayoral forum, the questions that came out were from a youth survey that we had put together to address some of the top youth issues young folks wanted the candidates to address. So all the candidates, we'll have 90 seconds to answer all the questions, and I'll be in charge of the timekeeping. I'll be putting up paper signs, tracking down the time. And yeah, so we're excited to have you here today, so we can go ahead and get started. I'll pass it over to Joanna that will get us into the first question that will be about homelessness and the housing crisis.
Thank you, Araceli.
Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Joanna. I'm a freshman at Bravo. And my question, well, first I want to give like a little bit of backstory, like background for my question. So based on the 2020 Greater Los Angeles homeless count, there are approximately 4,061 youth who are unhoused, which does not include the youth living in unstable housing. With the Greater Los Angeles count happening again this year, this number can go up. Do you believe that youth homelessness is an issue, and how do you plan to address it?
Yes, it's a huge issue, and it really is an issue for a lot of families who are living in their cars. I know youth who don't even have a house and they're going to school. They're just struggling, trying to make it. And I think it's particularly hard for youth who are emancipated from the foster care program. In many cases, they've gone through traumas, multiple traumas. Now they're 18 years old, and all of a sudden they're supposed to know how it all works, and they're supposed to be able to take care of themselves, which is not right, because sometimes when you have traumas in your life, you can't figure it all out when everybody expects you to figure it out. So certainly we need to address all these systemic issues. I'll talk about what I think is causing some of the problems, but also talk about what I believe are the solutions. Some of the causes are people who are just not making enough money in LA. I mean, $15 an hour, you're at poverty level. And so you cannot pay your bills at $15 an hour. With rent costing for a one bedroom, $1,700 or more per month. In many cases, that's over half of a person's income. So how are you supposed to do that? And then if your car gets a flat tire, you know, or if something happens, you get an illness, how are you going to take care of these things? So those are major problems. So what we should do is this. One, we should put together housing initiatives like in manufactured homes. We should use them. We should use industrial buildings, retrofitting them for the temporary housing. But we also need to prepare for the supportive permanent housing too. And then I'm a housing guy. I have a master's degree in housing. And so what we should do is build faster and build cheaper. We can do it with manufactured housing. We can do it along transit corridors. We can do it in areas where that are called commercial corridors, where they have vacant commercial space. We can do this. We can do it a lot cheaper. We can do it faster. And we have no other time but to do it now. We must do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering that question. Now go ahead, still on the same topic. I'll go ahead and pass it to Chelsea.
Hi, my name is Chelsea again. The next question is, what policies would you enact to make sure affordable housing is available to all, especially for young people?
Well, here's what we need to do. We have a tremendous housing shortage in LA, and part of the problem is the city government. Whether you may not know, but if a builder wants to build one unit, one apartment unit or a house, they have to spend $60,000 up front before they can even begin to break ground. So the city charges the highest fees in any other city in the state. One we need to do is we need to waive those fees if they will bill for people who cannot afford. So let's say, for example, someone can only afford $800 a month. We'll waive their fees. We'll waive the builder's fees so they can build homes that people can afford at $800 a month, for example. So we need to do those things. We need to expedite the process. The other thing we need to do is we need to realize that there are some communities where people are rich and they don't want anything else to happen. So they fight it. They fight anytime new developments come in their area. And we have to have elected officials who are strong enough to think about the future, think about the present. And they need to go against those rich neighborhood groups who say, we don't want any more, because guess what? If they don't, you won't have a place to live. I have so many friends who went to college. They're still living at home with their parents in their late 20s. That's not right. That's not what the dream they promised us. So we can do this. We can do it better, and we should do it better. We have an obligation to do it better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then our next topic will be on youth development and youth investment. We will have Giovanna asking the question.
Hi again. The city of Los Angeles currently invests about $82 per youth, which is not enough for LA's 800,000. Our young people have so much potential, and we need resources and support to continue to feel empowered. So what are your plans to create more youth decision-making power in LA City Hall? And how will you create more pathway opportunities for youth employment aside from higher LA youth programs?
Well, one of the things I have in my budget is to hire 75,000 high school students, part-time, 16 hours a week. That's what I was able to get when I was a student. And when I was 16 years old, I was able to buy my first car. My mom could not afford a car. So I bought a car at 16 because I had a job that was not making minimum wage. I was making about $3 an hour when everybody else was making $1.65 an hour. So here's what my plan is to hire 75,000 youth, pay them the basic $15 an hour. But if they stay in school for the semester, pay them $3 an hour above that. So let's say at the end of the semester, instead of them getting $15 an hour, they get $18 an hour for their whatever they want to use it for. Second thing is that we need to share power. We need to make sure the youth are at the table. I plan on hiring youth, but also appointing youth to my commissions. You know how police beat up on some of us? I want to have a young person, a youth, on my police commission. Never heard of before, but that's how you share power. You put them at the plate where decisions are being made. And so I would like to have youth on the Rec and Park Commission. They oversee the folks like, the Coliseum and all the parks and recreation. Doesn't it make sense to have a youth on that commission? with the adults, because some of the adults, they're thinking only about adults. They're biased toward adults. They're not thinking about the youth. And so sharing power, investing money into after school programs, summer job programs, internship programs where they get paid in the summer and credits during the school year.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will go ahead and the next topic will be on public safety. And we have Alexis here that will ask the question.
Thank you, Araceli. In mid-2021, there were 18,753 youth arrests, according to the data from the Advance Project. In order to keep young people feeling safe in their communities, what is your plan to reduce crime, prevent youth from being victims of crime, and from being criminalized?
Well, you know, as a kid growing up in Pacoima was what they call a barrio, a ghetto. And that's where I grew up at. And I was a lowrider, so I got pulled over by the cops a lot. And so I think, one, we want our community safe, and we want our children safe, and we want our youth safe. And how do we do it? We have to hire more police officers. My plan has 1,500 police officers, but also we have 350 mental health caseworkers, because many times the police officers, their first reaction is a gun or a baton. Many of those things they're not dealing with crisis management or conflict resolution. We need to have people who have the expertise in those areas to do that. We should not be afraid of police. We should not be afraid to call them, thinking that if we call them, they're going to beat us up and they're going to criminalize us. And so I believe my plan is called accountable community policing. Hold the cops accountable, hold the criminals accountable, the gang members accountable. Everybody needs to be held accountable and not just make the youth the bad people. So we put money into it, but we have to make our city safe. But we also have to get the cops out of their cars, into the communities, at the soccer fields, at the playgrounds, at the place where the youth hang out at, so they get to know who the people are. And that way they don't think it's us against them.
Thank you. Now the next question will be on mental health. And we have our youth Eileen that will be asking this question.
Hey, Eileen.
Hi. So globally, one in 7 10 to 25-year-olds experiences a mental health disorder, with suicide being the 4th leading cause of death amongst this age group. So my question to you is, how do you plan to address the youth mental health crisis, especially during the pandemic?
So the pandemic has been particularly hard. I volunteer for youth at risk programs. And here's what I've heard from the young people who are going through the pandemic. They're saying they're stressed out. They're saying they're feeling anxieties. They're saying that their parents don't understand them. And these are things that are chronic. It's not just, every now and then. This is happening all over our city. And so I believe we need to have mental health care where people can go. Sometimes the parents are just not equipped to understand your needs. And so you should be able to go for free and get mental health treatment so that you will be able to get released from some of the stresses and pressures that you have. Frankly, sometimes parents put the pressure on you. They want you to perform a certain way. They don't like the way you dress. They don't like how you call yourself and whether you're he or she. And so we need to get mental health experts who can help our young people release some of this stress. I mean, I know people, I have a friend, his name was Jalen. He just committed suicide. And he was only like 17 years old. He was a wonderful young man. He used to be in my Sunday school class and I was his teacher. And his parents just didn't see the warning signs. And we need to have help where young people can call and get help immediately without having to go through their parents to get the help. And so that's what we have to do. Part of my plan is to hire 350 mental health experts so that our youth will have some mental health care available to them.
Thank you so much once again. And then I'll go ahead and ask our last question, and it will be on sustainability. So the Earth's climate is changing in response to increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases and particulate matter in the atmosphere, largely as a result of human activities. So my question is, while many politicians have plans to address climate change, what is your vision and plan when it comes to sustainability and dealing with global warming?
Well, I would ask you to go to my website and take a look at that, but I'll tell you specifically what my plans are now. When I was on the Metro board, and the mayor of LA gets to be the big player on the Metro board. We had 2,000 buses. They were diesel, methanol buses spewing out carcinogenic, fumes in our neighborhoods, in our communities, the Black and brown communities. And so we made a decision. We had to pay more per bus, but we made a decision to get rid of all those carbon, emission buses and put them to low emission buses. My plan is to make all our buses at Metro, and the city of LA has a fleet of 300 vehicles and buses too, make them all electric so that we go down to zero. My plan is to have 50% carbon emission reduction during my term, 50%. And how do we do it? We electrify, we change behavior, we've put money where our mouth is at. Young people are dying from respiratory ailments because of these carbon emissions in our planet. So look at the extreme swings in our planet. It's all human created. And if we're serious about this, we need to make sure there's a future for young people, because without it, you won't have a future. The planet will be burning up, and we'll have floods in places where we had droughts, and we'll have droughts in places where we have floods. So we can do this, but we have to have a willingness to do it. I signed on to the Green LA Initiative, the Paris Climate Initiative. These are things that young people can step to the table. You'll be on my commission, my environmental commission, so that you can make a difference in the decisions that these adults are making. And sometimes they're the adult decisions that are bad decisions.
Thank you so much for answering that. Thank you so much for answering all our questions and for being here with us today. That concludes our Q&A. So now we'll transition and we'll let you, Mel, have a closing statement. You'll have another 90 seconds to close us off with anything you would want to let the LA youth and LA know.
Well, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. I'll make it very succinct. I want to make our city safe. I want to create good paying jobs by helping our businesses. Many of our businesses are immigrant-owned businesses. We need to help them by getting rid of the city's business tax. I invest in children. I invest in youth. I have my plans subsidizes 75,000 childcare spaces. Many of you have been asked to help your brothers and sisters, and then that takes away from your life. You can't even live your own life because you're being a babysitter. We need to help the people who have kids pay for those childcare spaces because they're too expensive. We need to make housing affordable, not only for the rich, but the middle class and the poor people. That's where I come from. My core values were shaped by the life that I lived. I grew up poor. I went to school. I got a degree. I worked myself into the middle class. But one of the things that no politician is willing to do, I'm willing to step up and have a national campaign that we start right here in LA to get rid of this student debt that's burdening families, generations and generations of families, especially Black and brown families, who they have to get more debt than their rich white families. So I want to help us get rid of this debt. President Biden said he was going to do it. He chickened out on us, and I'm mad at him for doing that. We need to step it up and help our young people, because it's going to help. You're our future. You are our today, and you're our future. So I'm Mel Wilson. Go to my website, mayor.com. Help me. You need to, if you can, just spend a little of your time. Help me volunteer. Help me get the message out. I'm the underdog. All these other people are career politicians who make all these promises that they don't keep. And that's why they got booed out of the building on Tuesday at the debate. They got booed. Everybody got booed but me. And they were looking at me saying, why are they booing us? And I said, because you guys are not doing what you say you're going to do. So help me help you. I come from the hood. You know, I'm a fighter. I'm not going to lay down and let the career politician and the billionaires take over our city. We're going to get our city back for the young people who can run this town, because you guys are the present and you are our future. And I'm going to share power with you by putting you on commissions and not just giving you lip service. And I'm going to help you by investing in after school care, in programs like giving a job where you're making more than minimum wage. That's what I'm going to do as the mayor of your city. Why? Because I know that's what got me out of trouble, and you deserve better than what you're getting right now. So help me. Go to my website, mayor.com. We can do this together. We can't alone, but I'll tell you, we can outwork them. They're going to outspend us. We're going to outwork them.